Okay, let's get started.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It will be crowded. There's one seat left, and hopefully you can also sit or lay on the ground if you like to. Thanks for joining us. In the next 45 minutes, we will share some Intune tips and tricks you can use in your own environment, hopefully. So my name is Daalmans. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm a 14-year MVP. And an MVP you become by presenting at events like this, being active in the community. And with me, I have Tim.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Tim de Keukelaere. I'm from Belgium. I live in the beautiful city of Ghent. Like Peter, I'm pretty active in the community. It's, I think, 12 years consecutive MVP. Not surprisingly, in the endpoint space, in my day-to-day job, I'm for over 20 years helping customers design modern and secure workplaces. So that's about me, not spend too much time on that. I think we need to get the show on the road. So yeah, tips and tricks. Maybe first a small disclaimer, Peter.
Yeah, so we will be sharing a couple of features that may be in preview, and also Intune Suite features, which require an extra license. So be aware of that. Preview features are supported by Microsoft. They are. If you use this and you have an issue, then there is support, but don't rely your business processes on it, because the features may change based on the feedback
or get revoked entirely.
Or get revoked. We have seen that also happening. So yeah.
All right, tip number one, maybe quick call of hands. Who in the room is effectively working with Intune on a day-to-day basis, so an Intune administrator?
Hopefully everybody.
Quite a couple of hands, so yeah, okay. So yeah, portals overload, that's a quick tip, tip number one. In the old days, the gray hair might have given it away. I used to work with Configuration Manager, and then my day-to-day job started in the Config Manager console and ended in the Config Manager console. When you're managing modern workplaces, there's much more to it. You have the Intune admin portal, which you're all familiar with, I think. But as a modern workplace admin, you also need access to other things. Sometimes you need to do something in Entra. Sometimes you're also responsible for security and you're working in Defender for Endpoint, which also has a different admin center. Sometimes only the Microsoft 365 admin center can do something that you need to do. So remembering all those URLs, remembering all those portals, that's not really easy. So the Intune.microsoft.com, most of you will be familiar with it. How many of you were aware that there's also like an AKA MS short link that you can, if you're not familiar with typing? I see one hand, yeah, of course. So yeah, that's one of them. But what about all the other portals? So a lot more. I mentioned the Entra Admin Center, I mentioned MDE, Defender for Endpoint, and much more. There we have this pretty cool thing. It's something that's developed by somebody who works at Microsoft. It's the Microsoft Cloud command line. And how you reach it is through the browser. And maybe just a quick demo. You can switch to your browser, Peter. It's this one, I think.
Yep.
Yes. So if you do this, you have the Cloud command line. And of course, yeah, I'm not that familiar with Entra. How do I get to the Entra Admin Center? I can just click here. I need to go to Defender. I can go here. And instead of going to the main page, you can do this. It will open up in a new tab. If the issue that would only take 90 minutes to fix with the front door at Microsoft would be resolved, and I don't think it's resolved yet entirely. So yeah, probably many of you are aware about the issue that Microsoft encountered yesterday and a lot of their cloud services that were impacted and access to the cloud services. We tested the demos this morning, and to my surprise, it still had a lot of latency and a lot of delay. So yeah, I think it's still not fully resolved yet. So, but as you can see, by clicking the link, I can immediately enter the Entra Admin Center. But you can also go a lot deeper. Right? Let's take the example of Defender. Maybe I know that I want to do advanced hunting. Instead of going to the 365 Defender main landing page, I can go to hunting directly. And as you can see, you also have a command for each of these shortcuts. So next time you open your browser and you don't want to go to cmd.ms, you can type immediately dhunting.cmd.ms. And that will bring you immediately into the, hopefully that will go a little bit quicker, bring you to the Defender for Endpoint portal immediately in the right pane to start doing whatever task that you need to do. So yeah, that's quick tip number 1. Back to this one.
How do you verify that someone doesn't post a malware link there?
I don't. I'm not responsible for that website. Yeah, that's a good comment, actually. So the question was, how do you verify that somebody doesn't put something malicious, a malicious link in there? True. Again, this is a page that is maintained by somebody from Microsoft. I'm not sure where he hosts it or how he validates it, but it's a valid question. I cannot answer it, unfortunately. So.
I think it's Merrill, right?
Yes.
He's developing a lot of handy tools. So tip 2, frontline workers. How many of you are working with frontline workers in a factory, or a couple of you? It's always a pain, right? If a frontline worker needs to authenticate, putting in his UPN and password to be able to work on his Android device. Microsoft, the Entra team in this case, resolved this issue by allowing the authentication method via a QR code. Basically, what you can do is scan a QR code, and then you will be logging in. So I recorded a couple of demos to just show you how this works. So if you go to the Entra admin center and go to authentication methods, you have the QR code authentication method, which you need to enable. You can enable this for all users, but you can also scope this for a certain amount of users, which is normal the case, I guess. You're not going to enable this for all users. You can configure the QR pin length, because you need to log in with a QR code and together with a pin. And you can also configure the how long the QR code is valid. So by enabling this, you can then configure the authentication method, especially for the end user. So in this case, I have my own user as a demo. I go to authentication methods, and here I am able to add a new authentication method. By selecting the QR code. And then I'm able to also configure the expiration, if the authentication method needs to be activated in the future or just now. And I can configure a random PIN, or just use your, in this case, I use my birthday, because that's easy to remember. Since I've configured this authentication method for my account, I'm able to access the QR code. I can save it, print it on a badge or somewhere else, hand it out to the user, and then the user can use this QR code to log in. This is, I believe, only available in Android if you're using the managed environment. So you have the option to log in via QR code, and just scan it, enter the PIN, and then the first time you do this, you need to reset the PIN. So in this case, I already tested it a couple of times, so I don't need to reset my PIN. And now the authentication is being done. And to show you that the user is not requiring to enter his Entra credentials anymore, there's a single sign-on to, for instance, Teams. So the user is not being prompted again for his or her authentication information. And it's all fairly seamless. You can also open web browsers with how do you say that? With a single sign-on. So that's pretty straightforward.
All right. The next one, multi-admin approval. Maybe another call of hands. Anybody already using the multi-admin approval feature in the Intune Admin Center? See a couple of hands, not a lot, and I think I understand why. Multi-admin approval, it's been around for quite some time. yeah, the name kind of gives it away. It's the 4I principle. What if somebody does something in the Intune Admin Center, and you want to make sure there's a second pair of eyes that verifies that activity. So yeah, multi-admin approval, how it is scoped or not scoped, if you want to call it like that, it's basically based on workloads. So there are specific workloads in the Intune Admin Center which you can use the multi-admin approval feature. And for a very long time, it's only been for 2 of them. The scripts and the applications, I think, are the 2 workloads, if I can call them like that, that were supported with the multi-admin feature. So that's a bit of a pity, because I do see the added value in that. As an Intune admin, I always tell that to my customers as well. You have a lot of power. You can basically do something harmful on every endpoint in your estate. So why not introduce something like a 4I principle? So yeah, this is a feature that is around. It helps also to protect against compromised accounts. What if one of your Intune admins, the credentials have been obtained by a malicious user? Well, with the multi-admin approval feature, you could prevent harmful activities being done in Intune. But again, as I mentioned, only for select object types, although, yeah, we can say last year there was a small change, and now in September there's been another change as well. There are some more movements, improvements in that feature. I do hope that Microsoft invests more and builds this capability across a lot of the activities in the Intune Admin Center. So yeah, what do you need? Of course, at least 2 admin accounts, yeah, the 4I principle. And to set it up, yeah, you do need some higher level privileges, because you need to put in like an access policy that basically says, okay, I want to introduce multi-admin approval, for example, the script feature. So you need to set that up first. And as I mentioned, the scoping is kind of limited. If you enable it for the scripts workload, every script that you want to introduce in your environment will adhere to the multi-admin approval. So you always need 2 persons in the room, basically, to be able to effectively implement that script or an application that you want to introduce in your environment. So yeah, what does it look like? I think we have a small demo recording afterwards. So if you go to your Intune admin portal, you go to the tenant administration, you will see in the lower left the multi-admin approval. And the first step, as I mentioned, is to create an access policy. So that's where you define which workloads that you want to adhere to the multi-admin approval. And then this is how the flow goes. So once the access policy is in place, admin number 1 introduces something. And let's take the example of a script. They create a script or they edit the script in the Intune Admin Center. They review it, and instead of immediately introducing it into the environment, releasing it into the environment, they will have to add a justification. Why am I implementing this script in this environment? And at that point, it becomes stale, if I can call it like that, and it comes into an approval queue. And that's where admin number 2 takes over. He's basically the approver. That person will need to go and look into the queue and see which requests are waiting for his or her approval. That's one of the downsides for me as well. There is no, it's also in the slides mentioned, there is no, let's say, notification methodology. Admin number 2 doesn't get like a message, hey, admin number 1 is waiting for you to approve something. So you really have to have your eyes on that queue, or have a regular checkpoint yourself, maybe every morning, every 4 hours, that you look, hey, is there anything waiting for my approval? Which is a bit of an annoyance. That. So basically, they go to that queue. They look at, okay, this is the script. They will also see the source of the script. So they can. It's not just like, okay, I see something, I'll quickly approve it because my mate wants it to be deployed as soon as possible. You also see the code of the script. So you can review it straight away to see if there's anything like, hey, am I doing anything stupid here or not? So once that is done, they can basically decide to approve or, yeah, of course, not approve the script. And then they also have to add a note to that. So as I mentioned, you need to look at it regularly. That status, so whatever is done, the approval or denial, will remain in that queue visible for about 30 days. Yeah. Also, one of the next steps then, let's assume that the approval is okay. Admin number 2 has approved the request. Then still, admin number 1 needs to go back to the initial request that was submitted and see that the approval has come in and complete the request. So that's an additional step. We had even the debate this morning whether that is useful or not. I think in some cases it can be useful. In other cases, maybe not. Let's take applications as an example. If I create a new application, I checked with Peter, Peter has reviewed it, he approves it in the console. Why would it have to come back to me? I mean, I was already convinced that the application was okay. I'm just using Peter as an additional verification. Why would I, as a third step, then have to go, okay, and complete the request as well? So there's some debate possible on that. So yeah, I think I covered most of this in the in my talk. Intune audit logs, that's also interesting. Let's say that you want to backtrack. Hey, this script has been released in the environment. It's adhering to the multi-admin approval approach. I want to know who did what. Well, in the audit logs, in the Intune audit logs, you can see those type of activities. You can see the events. And then, yeah, the conditions for a request, as mentioned, for 30 days, the requests stay in the queue. And these are the different states that a request can be in. It's either approved, it's either rejected, it's completed, or it's canceled. That's also possible. So the initial administrator number 1, can revoke his request for approval as well. Why would you do that? Well, I didn't mention that explicitly, but once you submit the approval request, the object is locked. You can't do with it anything with it anymore. So you would have to cancel the initial request to be able to edit, for example, the script again as admin number 1. So there are some constraints. I think with that, we have a small demo. No, we first have the latest evolutions. So as I mentioned, small improvements have been made after a very long time. What you can do now for the application profiles, you can make a segregation for Windows and non-Windows apps. So if that looks like this in the console. So when you create a new access policy, you will see those 2 sliders at the bottom. It's been available for a year, since August last year. So you can basically say this is only valid for Windows applications or non-Windows applications. And another improvement that they made, which is a good one, was just last September, just about a month ago. They also introduced a workload for device actions. So, and I think this is a smart one. If somebody wants to wipe a device, you can also make this adherent to multi-admin approval. So the wipe request is initiated by admin number 1, but admin number 2 has to review it and approve it as well. So accidental wipes can be avoided by that. It's for wipe, retire, and delete. So those 3 device actions in the Intune Admin Center can now also be configured for multi-admin approval. This is how you create the access policy, and that's where you see the state. Demo, I think we pre-recorded this on Peter's environment. So yeah, just talk you through it. This is a wipe request for a device. And as you can see, because it's submitting to multi-admin approval, you have to have a business justification. So admin number 1 has to justify why he's doing this request. He just did that and submitted it. You get a notification that a second admin needs to approve that wipe action on this specific device. And then we switch to the other console with admin number 2. Remember my flow. Admin number 2 then goes to tenant administration, multi-admin approval, and looks at the queue. You see the device action, the wipe request coming in. You also see details on what the wipe request is about. Then you can choose to approve it. And in this case, you also need to add an approver note. So go ahead. Admin number 2 is approving the request. And then we are switching back to the console of admin number 1. And you see that the request, hang on. So, oh, it's not that one. So in multi-admin approval, admin number 1, in the queue, you see that it's approved, but you still need to complete the request. So that's the 3rd action we just talked about, where we can debate whether that's really needed or not. So in this case, the request was completed, and now, just now, the wipe request is effectively sent to the device. So I think this is helpful, but again, no scoping. So if you would implement this, it's tenant-wide. So every wipe request then would require to go through this flow. Okay. Device cleanup rules.
Device cleanup rules. And for a long time, we were able to create one global policy, device cleanup rule policy, where you could say, okay, if a device is inactive in Intune for 30 days, delete the device registration. But now we can scope this based on platform. And it's a fairly long list. Even Vision OS and TV OS is there. Of course, also Chrome OS. So basically all the supported platforms, you can create different cleanup rules between 30 days and 270 days. I think really helpful. There's only one downside. It only deletes your Intune registration. It doesn't do anything with the Enter ID registration. So I see a lot of environments, and almost every customer has configured this, but they completely forget the Enter ID registration. So depending on when they started, you can see device registrations from 2017 or earlier, still in the tenant, which maybe a little bit overdue. This is only for joint devices. So the question was, is it only for registered devices or Intune managed devices? Sorry, Intune managed devices. So this is the Intune registration, and it doesn't do anything with registered or joint devices in Entra ID. So you need to create your own script to clean this up. But yeah, in the Netherlands and in Europe, we always have long holidays, so don't create a schedule that is too short. If you go on holiday for 4 or 5 weeks, then you may end up with a device which needs to check in again and get all the policies again. But if you delete the Entra ID registrations, then you also delete the BitLocker key, for instance, the recovery key. So be aware of that, of course.
All right, tip number 5, browser extensions. Maybe again, a call of hands. Who is managing browser extensions in their environment? A couple of hands, but not a lot. I think that this is a good tip. It's something that I don't see regularly being implemented already at my customers, and at least not fully. And it's something that you can easily do and enhance your security posture quite significantly. So yeah, browser extensions. Before this, it actually starts with a managed browser. I'm still regularly fighting battles about, is one browser sufficient in your environment? And no, it's not because you've been using Google at home for 20 years that it should also be your default browser in your corporate environment, because you can do the same with Edge. It's also Chromium-based. All your extensions should work in Edge as well. So step number 1 is try to standardize on one browser. If that doesn't work because your management is not supporting you, well, then you might have double the work to manage your browser extensions, because as well for Google Chrome as for Microsoft Edge, you can have configuration profiles in Intune to manage these browser extensions. And why would you want to do that? Well, Defender for Endpoint knows the answer. If you would look in Defender for Endpoint, there is a specific blade that tells you which extensions have specific vulnerabilities, and it's quite an eye-opener for your companies if you haven't checked these yet. Because if everybody can freely install any type of extension in any type of browser, yeah, who knows what you're introducing in your environment? And like many of us, your browser, I think you're using it, during your entire day for all your applications, internal or external, and that also launches the extensions. So yeah, check an MDE. Just go to vulnerability management, inventories, and then on the top you see browser extensions. This is just a screenshot from my lab, but in a production environment, I can assure you that if you're not managing your extensions, this is an eye-opener. So how do you manage that? Again, this is just a tips and tricks session. We're only going to spend a few minutes on this. In Intune, you can create configuration profiles, and the bare minimum, one configuration profile can be sufficient. If you have 2 browsers to support, Chrome and then Edge, well, you can do it. You can mix the settings in one profile. I tend to split them up because I'm still hopeful that one day we can get rid of Google Chrome and just use Edge, for example. If you're also using Firefox in your environment, I'm afraid you're on your own. You can't control, it's an unmanaged browser, so yeah. Good luck with that. So the configuration profile, these are the bare minimum settings that you need. So it's the ordering is a little bit off. That's a Microsoft feature. Yeah, it's a nice one. So the first one is basically control which extensions cannot be installed. Imagine that this is on top. Again, for one reason or another, Microsoft doesn't organize this properly. If you enable this one, the second piece of that puzzle is the extension IDs that the user should be prevented from installing. You can use a star wildcard there. And by doing that, you basically block the users from installing any extension. Okay, that's the other side of the spectrum. Extensions can have an added value and might be needed in your environment. So step number 2 is basically whitelisting. So that's the second that you see there. Allow specific extensions to be installed. You enable that in your configuration profile. And what you do then is basically saying, okay, which extension IDs, and this looks gibberish, but if you go to the website of a specific extension, the final part of that URL is basically the extension ID. That works for Edge extensions, but also for Chrome extensions. You just copy-paste that in this field, and that's whitelisting. Whitelisting means that they're not mandatory or forcefully installed for the end user, but if he would go to the extensions tab in his browser and then click, I want to install this extension, it would be allowed. Otherwise, it's just blocked by that first rule. Yeah? So that's basically what we want to do. And then the last, if I can go back. So that's this is the one that you see here, extension IDs to exempt from the block. And this is the third part of the puzzle. This is basically forcefully installing. If you really want to offload the burden from your end users that they have to manually install extensions themselves, this is basically the feature that says, okay, these 3 extensions will be forcefully installed on every browser and will be available. Like in Belgium, what we typically do is like the EID readers, the one that you use to read your passport information. I don't want to bother my end user to look for it and see, and it's the middleware, and it's the viewer, and it's something else. We basically look up what the extensions are, and we make them available for everybody in their browser. So that's how you can do that. So yeah, simple profile, a couple of settings, and your security stance will be at least a little bit better than it was the day before. So I think that's it for this one. Yeah.
That's
Next
also
one.
yours.
It's also mine. Okay, another quick one, I think, the filtering of policies. This is basically also something new from last month, something I overlooked myself as well. Yeah, it's a small thing, but it can be helpful. Sometimes I work in really big tenants, and I know that I'm, for example, looking for a configuration profile specifically for VPN or for Wi-Fi. Well, since September, what you can do, if you do the filtering, if you go to policies, you can have a filter on policy type. And if you know that, for example, you're looking for something from the settings catalog or a VPN profile or whatever, you can filter on that. You couldn't do that before the month of September. So yeah, quick tip, but can be really helpful, especially if you're working in bigger tenants. And I think with that, Peter, we're over to endpoint analytics.
Endpoint analytics.
Yes.
How many of you are using endpoint analytics? Only a few hands. To me, this is one of the hidden jewels in Intune, because if you managing an environment, it gives you so much information, proactive information, which you can use to proactively support your end users without a lot of effort, to be honest. Because, yeah, it gives you a lot of insights about a lot of things, and it's basically this feature is divided by Intune Core. So this part is supported by Intune Core, which is enabled on all tenants, and the second part is a little bit of extra information which requires Intune Suite. But by default in Intune, it gives you a lot of proactive information. For instance, how often did a device had a blue screen, or nowadays it's a black screen since last month? But how often is a device crashed in the last 30 days? And you can easily create a filter on it and select, for instance, every month the top 5 of the devices which have a lot of black screens or crashes, and then you call the end user and say, okay, I see you have a lot of crashes. Come to the office, we have a new laptop for you. Because nowadays users don't bother to call the service desk anymore when an app crashes or when a device reboots. They just grab another cup of coffee and they proceed with what they were doing. So it gives you a lot of added value. And I always position this at new customers. I ask the same question: are you using this? No, why? Because we do our thing. We have our support desk. It will help your ratings, I think, during the year if you be proactive. In this screenshot, you see, for instance, 2 unnamed applications. They were really, focused on the customer I've taken this screenshot from. But in the last 14 days, 210 app crashes, active devices, and the app reliability score of 16 because of 103 crashes of the app. this means that either the package is not okay, or the device doesn't have the right libraries to support the package. So it gives you also information about your package environment, all your packages on the devices. Because also when Office crashes or Outlook hangs, I don't bother to call the service desk, just kill the process and restart again. But if this, happens so often, then you might also lose a lot of money. So let's quickly have a look in the environment. So if we go to reports, then we have the endpoint analytics part. And again, part of it is you require an extra license, but the things I'm showing you now are part of the native, the Intune core capabilities. So this also gives you directly a good overview of the devices with startup performance. That's normal information which is available. So if you have a lot of devices which takes a long time to boot, that information will be available here. And also based on that, you can say, okay, maybe we need to retire a model and replace it proactively. So if we just look at the app reliability score, in my environment, everything is pretty okay. But I think if I look at app performance, then it is also no crash events, no model. So if we...
So this is really all about end-user experience. Yeah. It's not really from a troubleshooting perspective. It's really from an end-user experience. As Peter says, an end-user typically doesn't bother calling the help desk for, okay, this is the third time today my application crashes. But if you want to improve that experience, this is where tools like this come in really help.
How is your CPU performing based on the different models? CPU spikes, etc., etc. It gives you, to me, if you ask me, a lot of information which allows you to proactively manage your environment. So if we go here, then I think I can't see the app crashes anymore. I think it's...
Your environment is too healthy, Peter. You need
I need to have some crappy devices in my environment. But have a look at this when you are back at work, because it may open your eyes about your estate. So another tip is gathering log files from Windows devices. When you, like us, being part of the IT world already for a long time and worked with SCCM, Config Manager, then we had like hundreds of log files which you could use to troubleshoot issues or application installs and so on and so forth. With Intune, it's a little bit limited, but with the new Gather log files, diagnostic files, you get a lot of information about the log files, but also registry keys and so on and so forth. But what about custom log files? For instance, of your application installs. If an application installs, you have, of course, a registration in the event viewer, in the application log, but that's really limited, right? So if you want to have an extended installation log, you could easily use one of the locations which is gathered by the collect diagnostics process and store your log files over there. So what I normally advise my customers to use is this CCM log folder in the Windows directory. If you're cloud native, if you're Intune only, this folder is not being used. It's a folder especially for config manager, but it's still being gathered. So if the logs are there, all the information is being gathered. So I already prepared the demo for this a little bit. So if we go to my device, I think it's this one. We have the option to, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's, to collect the diagnostics. This process takes like up to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on your bandwidth, of course. So I already did this. Here you see that the process is being completed earlier this morning. And if we go to device diagnostics, you see that my request is being processed, completed, and I am able to download a zip file. And in this zip file, we see a lot of folders with logs, but also registry keys and so on and so forth. So for troubleshooting, a good place to start, but also for the custom logs, which I just placed 2 in my folder. Those custom logs are also gathered. So if you just make sure that if you package a new application and you want to gather the logs, place them in the CCM logs folder, and then you're good to go if you want to troubleshoot, of course, or if you need to troubleshoot.
All right, I think, the next tip, as we're approaching the end of the session, Windows Backup. Windows Backup for organizations, recently introduced by Microsoft, currently in public preview. So this is one of those preview features. And basically what it does, it saves your user settings to the cloud. I like to compare it to the experience that if you're familiar, for example, with Apple, if you're switching your iPhone, it basically asks in the beginning when you unbox your new phone, do you want to take over the settings that you had on your previous device, that you can convert all your configuration, your settings to the new device. This is a similar feature, but then for Windows. It has support for also Windows 10 and Windows 11. So if you're still having Windows 10 devices, which you shouldn't after... you can,
Windows 10 Home is still supported.
If you're at work and you still have Windows 10 devices, you shouldn't. So that's really the experience. And I think the next slide, Peter, if you can go forward.
Yeah, so you need to enable this on tenant level. So the Windows Backup and Restore feature, you need to enable this, and you need to create a settings catalog policy where you enable the Windows Backup also on the device. So it's 2 configurations, one tenant level, and then next is on the device itself. And if you've done this and you start a new Windows Autopilot process, you will see a new screen appearing. In this case, welcome back, Peter, and there's already a restore for me ready. So I'm able to select this one, or I'm able to, and you see that here, set it up as a new PC. So it gives you the option to quickly restore a lot of common settings, or you set your device up for a new as a new device. So.
It looks really familiar. Eh?
Yep.
If you're familiar with iOS devices, then I think this is kind of a similar. There's a question? Yeah.
How is this different from enterprise state roaming?
I think it's very similar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's going to replace that, but I think it's really similar.
Microsoft hasn't really commented on that either. So the question was, what's the comparison with enterprise state roaming? As Peter says, probably this is a next iteration in that story where you can basically migrate your settings to your new device, but there's no... Microsoft hasn't made any formal statements on the relationship between the two, or if one might go out and be replaced by the new one. So
it is a separate service.
A separate solution, yes, from Microsoft, yeah.
restore the backup on the current or on Autopilot?
The question is, can you also restore it on your current device? I haven't seen the restore option on the current device. I only was able to test this.
This is rather new. I think
yeah.
it's only a couple of weeks old that you need to register for the public preview. So that's actually a good question. Maybe something to test.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this ever going to be for co-managed devices or is it just
As I recall correctly, in the documentation, it's currently for cloud-only devices.
Yeah,
so yeah, only cloud-native devices, not for any co-managed or other. No. To quote Microsoft, all the new capabilities will mostly be based on cloud-only type of scenarios. It might be that they still invest in those hybrid and on-premise, but it's going to be a lot less than what we're seeing.
So the last tip.
Yeah, tip number 11, the Copilot agents. It took us until we mentioned Copilot. We get 50 euros from Microsoft every time we mention Copilot. It's not true. But yeah, also there, Copilot and Intune is being introduced, pushed, if I can call it like that, more and more. And this is one of the first things that you will see. It's called the Vulnerability Remediation Agent. It's currently in limited public-private preview. So there's limited public. Maybe there's also very limited public, I don't know. What that gives you is a new pane in the Intune Admin Center. So in the back, it's using data from Defender for Endpoint to give you insights on vulnerabilities, on vulnerable apps, for example, in your environment. It does come with a cost. What does it require? Intune plan number 1. Yeah, okay, everybody has it, I think. But you also need Security Copilot. You need SCUs to fuel or power the queries that it's running. And you also need the Defender Vulnerability Management feature, which is also an add-on on top of Defender for Endpoint. So there is quite some licensing/cost involved. There's a link in the deck which we will share afterwards where you can actually read up on that. And I think, Peter, for the few minutes that are left,
let's
a small demo on...
Let's quickly show it, because how many of you have looked at Security Copilot? Just a few? So it comes with the extra cost, right? And if you follow the guidelines from Microsoft, it comes with a lot of extra cost. Yeah, because you need to have like minimum of 4 SCUs, etc.
There goes your 50 euros, Peter.
Yeah. So quickly show the vulnerability agent. It is an in-console experience. You need to manually run this, and then it will show a little bit of data, but it doesn't really work with... If you zoom it,
doesn't like zoom.
Look, and this doesn't like that also. So, like the figure already showed, you get the top vulnerabilities in your environment, and you're basically able to click, and then you have information how to resolve this. This vulnerability. This is the first iteration of this agent. After you manually resolve this vulnerability, you can click mark as applied, and then you're good to go. Another quick tip, because if you want to start...
It doesn't do anything, Peter.
No, it doesn't.
It's not intrusive in your environment. It doesn't take any actions itself. It's just to inform you. I think that's an important one to mention.
So the portals are not helping me. What you can do, if you are keen in looking towards the environment, no, it doesn't show the information. So I will keep this one for later. Sorry about that. And the last one.
One more tip, staying up to date. We only had 45 minutes. There's a lot of small things, a lot of small tips that we can give. How do we stay up to date? Well, of course, we're in the MVP community. We do get quite some information there. But for you, how can you stay up to date? Yeah, social media still is active. A lot of the Microsoft people are still there. I don't know, Peter, we used to use X, but now a lot of them have moved to Blue Sky. If you want to get started on Blue Sky, there is the Microsoft Intune Starter Pack. It basically gives you a connection directly to a lot of community people involved in our space, in the endpoint management and security space. What else do we have, Peter? The Intune blog.
Yeah, and the what's new. Of course, every month, or basically every update, it is posted to the What's New. If you want to have a look in the roadmap, Microsoft has a public roadmap for all M365, but also what's in development, all the features which Microsoft is working on. And then, of course, you have the Intune community as a feedback hub, where you can provide feedback. And also with the smileys and frownies in the console itself, use that, provide feedback there, because that goes directly to the engineering team. And with that...
Just on time.
Just on time. 12 o'clock.
We were
It's
standing
lunchtime.
between you and
Thank you.
lunch, so enjoy.